Hi, welcome back, and thank you so much, Sigma Industry, for that live presentation. To wrap up this day, we are back here at Armada Studio, and we have assembled a diversity panel, which our head of diversity, Anastasia, is gonna lead. First off, we're just gonna check the sound, so if that mic could just say some testing. Do we hear it?
Testing, testing.
And the other mic?
Testing, testing.
This is incredible. Then Anastasia,
Testing,
the floor is yours.
Okay.
Testing,
Sorry, okay.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your quick presentation. And yes, I'm so happy that we could put this together and that you all agreed to be part of this. I am super impressed and happy. Yeah, cannot say it more and express it, but I hope you feel it. I will quickly introduce all of us, beginning with me, probably, and then we'll start off the panel, which will be 40 minutes, 45, quite quick. So we have Gabriella, chairman of Diversity Charter Sweden, and a communication consultant at Spoon Agency. I'll be just going through, and then we have Greg, the founder of New to Sweden. Yes, we have, and I forgot myself, but no mind. We have Norma, head of event and logistics at Bright KTH organization. We have Maria, I'm just going like that, project manager of the Swedish Foundation of Human Rights. We have Roh, gender equality, diversity and equal conditions strategist at KTH Equality Office. I said that. And we have Amina, who is GML coordinator of Malvina. And you'll have a chance to explain more if you want to, what I've just briefly covered. And I'm Anastasia, head of diversity at Armada. So we are here to discuss the diversity issues, in particular, should not say issues, questions, in particular related to students in relation to the job market and everything related to that, because this is what Armada is about, bringing students from KTH into this other step in their career. And I think diversity could be an important discussion point for them in this stage of their life, because then their transition could be made in a more comfortable manner for them. So not to drag for too long, I would want to maybe first give an opportunity for those who have some ideas, and I know some of you already have some points to bring up, to start from your own perspective, because I feel like we all represent different aspects of diversity, because it's so broad and it's impossible to cover it all, but we are trying to at least touch on some of them. So if you have any ideas, suggestions in that regard, straight away, you can start this panel. Yeah, perfect, thank you.
First of all, it has to be accessible and usable for everyone. And well, you could point out a lot of different issues, but one is that if you have vision impairment, it's very hard for you to get the literature in time when the course starts. Often you get it in the end of the course when your classmates has been getting it from the start. And that's because when you need it to, like when you read the text read, when you're listening to the text, that's a big problem.
Yeah, and I'm sure it feels like if we know that this is a thing to be aware of, then it could be solved.
It shouldn't have to be a problem. Yeah. It's known. It's known. Yeah. It's wide known.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up.
Well, accessibility and usability is like everywhere in the society. It's a problem also when it comes to studies.
For sure. Yeah, thank you. Good point.
I mean, I can just say that I totally see that. I think accessibility comes quite secondary when we think of diversity. I think here in Sweden in particular, we think a lot about gender diversity as sort of the diversity that we need to work on. Perhaps LGBTQ diversity comes next. There seems to be like a tiered system when it comes to diversity in Sweden, and then I feel like ethnic and cultural diversity, which is sort of what we work on with New to Sweden, I feel like that comes, well, probably not as bad as you probably have it as well, but somewhere down the road. So, I mean, I have so many suggestions. I don't know where to begin. We're going to talk about some of them today. I think we're going to talk about language requirements. We're going to talk about representation. We're going to talk about, I don't know how many people know about like the percentages of people who are diverse here in Sweden, but we have those numbers. So I think for now, I'll pass the mic, because otherwise I'll be talking for like 20 or 30 minutes. But we'll definitely, I think, we'll tackle each of those subjects separately. Norma or Gabriella, who would like to go?
Self-moderation, I'm loving it. Yeah.
I also think it's about role models, who you can see, and what educational institutions who you show, and who can I recognize myself in all the people that I see representing the education, which is very, very important.
Yeah. But do you feel like not everyone would think that, oh, KTH is a place for me to study because it's for these kind of people?
I was just checking briefly through your webpage just before I came here, and you are really, I mean, many differences you cannot see, of course, but you are very working very well with men and women, equality, as I could see in the pictures, but I could not see people of color or any other differences, and that was, of course, super brief.
Yeah, but that's a good point, and I'm glad you bring this up. Yeah. Now you have the mic, Norma, without you wanting it, but Roh, do you want to bring something?
Yeah,
Okay,
I just follow the same pattern. I really agree that we really need a more diverse representation at KTH, not with only our organization, but with every level at KTH. I don't know, the board, just all levels, because as you said, Gabriella, we really want to see ourselves in those positions to be able to approach them.
But I think what you are representing Bright here, and you are mostly about the cultural diversity and ethnical diversity.
Yeah.
And is it first year you are active or second year? You are quite new as an association at KTH.
Yeah, so Bright was founded in 2020, but because of the pandemic, we really didn't show up at any event. So,
but that would be different to Malvina, which is also association at KTH, but more targeting the gender equality, I would say. And you have been found more years ago, so it comes back to this hierarchy, Greg, like you mentioned. There might be this hierarchy of what is seen more important in Sweden in terms of diversity, which I don't know. I came here only 2 years ago, but I can maybe guess that. Yeah.
Yes, I'm from Malvina, and Malvina is a network for women and non-binary students at KTH. So we do talk a lot about gender equality, but I think we need to address more questions like disabilities and diversity question. I want to see more representation at KTH. I think we have a lot of statistics about gender equality on KTH, and that's really good. But we don't really talk about the other discrimination grounds. Yeah, grounds. So yes, and I think it's really important that we work with these questions here at school, because we will face the same questions then later when we get to work in the future. Some of your classmates will maybe be your colleagues or your bosses, or you don't know. So we need to establish a better norm, so these problems don't occur or won't be occurring at the same rate in the future that they are now. So, yeah.
And I think also what you mentioned to me, Amina, before is that it's easy to talk about that and say, look at us, we're so diverse, put these beautiful pictures on the website, but then you go in and you realize that actually people don't feel like they are included or welcome. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, when we're talking about these issues at universities and for students, to both remember that it's a question of the social environment, but also a question of the study environment. And there the university obviously has a big responsibility to, like, for instance, when it comes to what kind of education is it that we provide and what kind of research is conducted at KTH, and that diversity and equal conditions and equity is considered in all those aspects as well. And that's something that KTH is working with currently, but still has a long way to go. Because it's, on the one hand, it's the content, like what is the knowledge that we want to convey to students, but it's also a question of pedagogical choices and methods. How do we create inclusive educational environments so that everyone can feel welcome and included and seen, and also that students can feel are both aware of what they can expect and demand of the university, but also feel comfortable making demands. So this is what we need, this is what we want, so that we can then together try to find solutions for that.
True. I can see Greg wanting to comment.
Yeah, I'm waiting. No, I just had a quick question, I think, for the three of you, more specifically, but how much are your associations consulted for different things around the campus? I would like to know if you have any sort of power. Are you empowered to make a lot of changes? Or do you sort of, you can work with the student body, but not with administration?
And you're asking Norma and Amina?
Yeah, because I could just clarify that I'm not from an association. I work at the university. KTH Equality Office is sort of a supportive and coordinating unit at the central administration, working with these issues, for instance, when it comes to active measures against discrimination and so on. So hopefully, hopefully we're working together already. But I actually have to admit that I hadn't heard of your organization before now, so I'm very interested in hearing more, either now or later.
Yeah, sure.
You can answer the question that Greg posed, and then we'll carry on.
So as Anastasia mentioned, we're really new, so but my opinion is that we have a lot of support from Malvina and other associations here at KTH, but also from the outside, or even from our students. That people are really engaged in these kind of questions. So we have a support, but it's not established yet. So
yeah, as we just heard, so it's good now. Maybe new links are being made. And
to answer your question, I have actually been in GML associations, equality and equity associations here at school. And if I hadn't been so passionate about GML, I don't know if I had known that students can engage as much as we do at school. But we actually have the support from THS and the school. We just need to. We don't really get the information that we can affect the way we can do. But we actually have meetings all the time with the school, with the administration, so students can be heard if they just know about it. So that's the biggest problem here, I would say, is communication. The school want to do a lot, and the students want, but we don't always know that we can work together. So the communication is a problem, but I would say we are heard.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think we can take the questions that students asked to the panel without knowing too much about the panelists, and they could answer put these questions during the fair today. And one of them perfectly fits from Roh, what you were mentioning just now. And the question is it would be nice if maybe 3-4 of you respond. We don't have to take it all each time. So the question, how can diversity be embedded as a part of education? Because yeah, you questioned that. No pressure at all. I feel like it's a tough question because it's kind of how to solve things.
Well, I mean, that is something that we've been working with quite a lot in Equality Office the last few years, because now we have to integrate this in our educational programs. And the question is, how do we do that? How do we support the teachers in doing that? Because I think one big issue is that lots of teachers are sort of scared of like, oh, but I don't know this field, and I'm supposed to be this sort of knowledgeable, authoritative figure who knows all the answers to the students' questions. But there are already lots of ways that we can sort of like find entry points, because if you consider sustainable development, for instance, and sustainable development goals, reduced inequalities and gender equality are two of those goals. And the whole idea with all of the goals are that we need to fulfill all of them because they're interdependent on each other. So sustainable development is one entry point, but then it's also a question of not only like statistics and what is discrimination, but also a question of how do we work together, like group work, leadership, because at KTH there is a quite strong narrative of KTH educates the leaders of tomorrow. And then it is sort of important that we here at KTH also give tools to create good environments so that when our students go out into industry or maybe continue within academia, that they can contribute to creating inclusive, welcoming work environments as well.
Yeah. I can see Gabriella wanting to also.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that you say that we are a little bit afraid and we don't know how to approach the questions, and in one aspect we need to talk to each other more, and we need to be open when we don't know, and not afraid to ask the things that we really don't know about. It's not wrong to be curious if you have if you really want to know something different. And on the practical side, if you put together teams and you create a process where you make sure that you create teams that are so diverse as possible, we all know that diverse teams, they are more innovative than homogeneous teams. Absolutely. So that is, in the small aspect.
Yeah, but I think it's good that it's being mentioned that it's good to be curious and it's okay, but sometimes it feels like I'd just rather not ask a question and assume something, or just let it be and let it go. So I think the more we bring this up and say that it's okay to set a question, then maybe more people feel like it. Someone else wants to add something on that question?
I don't know whether or not this is in place at KTH already, but perhaps one idea is to have a diversity course or something like that that's a little bit more mandatory for a lot, or compulsory for a lot of the students, because we do know that this is the wave of the future. We do know that Sweden's becoming way more diverse in many different ways. This might be the best preparatory course for students to move forward into the labor market.
Yeah. When I was doing my bachelor in England, there we had it was in architecture and urban planning, and we had to have a course that is linked to sustainability, because the university had to push that and to make sure that all students listen to that course at least. So maybe that could be something where it's a compulsory thing. But then again, it comes back to how we ensure that there are teachers who can talk about that and feel like
there are teachers that you should be able to find a teacher
True.
out there who can do it. It's just a matter of whether or not KTH has the, I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but the will and the power and the money to do it. But they could do it, and they can better prepare the students for the future, I think.
And then also another level is that KTH again needs to be very careful with what they talk within that course, because if they just cover one aspect of it, again, they'll be criticized and so on.
You can cover a lot in 3 months' time, or if you have to take it, once a year, once per semester. I think that could be something really useful. But I mean, I'm not a student and I'm not part of the KTH administration, but as an outsider, I think that could be a plausible solution.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. Thank you for bringing it up. Amina, you want to add?
I think we have courses about like diversity and stuff, or it's on the agenda to have it. I don't think it's mandatory, but I know there are going to be courses that give merits, and I think we really need like mandatory courses or like courses that have diversity and YML questions in them. It doesn't have to be like you need to write a paper on this, but more to discuss. I think we need to discuss. I think the biggest problem is that we don't talk enough about these problems. We have covered like gender equality, and even if we haven't like solved it all, we are on the way, but we are not like on the same level with the other questions that we need to address. A thing I know that's also on KTH agenda, I don't know when it will be implemented, is that at the end of the course evaluations, they will have like questions, and I think students need to be more involved in like what type of questions we want at the end of courses. Like just not how did you find the atmosphere or did you feel welcome. We need like more, like a bit better questions that talk about diversity, so the students know how much they actually can talk about, so people can stop being so uncomfortable when we talk about like there's not enough representation, or why don't we talk enough about disabilities or the LGBTQ community, so people don't get uncomfortable. We need to get out of that comfortable zone. We need to talk about it more. So yeah,
for sure. What I'm thinking about now is that, for example, when I was sending the questionnaire to Armada people, do you feel welcome? There was this sensation to me that people don't want to make me feel bad, so maybe some of them were saying, yeah, I feel very welcome and it's so super nice, without feeling this, just not to make me feel bad. And I don't know how to break that. How do we make it not shamed that this is a problem? Yeah, you have maybe a solution, or I don't know, comments to add.
No, I don't have a solution, but I mean, instead of asking after a course, when you start a course, you can set up common rules and how do you have an...
Yeah.
Have a code of conduct.
Yes, an agreement. Yes, an agreement in the group, how you want to treat each other, and what you want, how feel you want to be.
Yeah, that's a nice addition.
I was just saying about your question about do you feel welcome. I think sometimes it's a hard question because we don't know, like.
Yeah, where is the scale?
I mean, if you ask me that, I will say, yeah, sure, I feel welcome, but I haven't really like thought about what's missing here for me, how the environment could be the best like environment for me, how it can be accessible to everyone. I mean, if someone is, I don't know, in a wheelchair, and they will probably like find an elevator or stuff, but if it's from the beginning like really clearly marked, or every entrance has a clearly marked like for like wheelchair entrance, or it said like in the beginning here we will have like loud noises and stuff, instead of going in and then I see that there's loud noises, I'm not comfortable, and then I will just walk out of there. If we have all the information, the accessibility from the beginning, so when I have that question, I will just like be like, well, if I don't like it, I will try to solve it myself. So I think we need to get out more the information for students, so they know if anything is missing, you should talk about it, because we need to talk about it more. So it's a bit about accessibility, like you said in the beginning.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know whether or not this is also in the KTH plans. It sounds like there's a lot of stuff that might be happening, but engagement surveys and inclusion surveys, like more in-depth surveys, are they in the plans for this entire student body?
maybe this isn't the answer to your question specific, but I think we could come a long way if we talked more about that it's the same structures that discriminate people, independent on where we come from or what we look like and everything. It's the same structures. So I think, and I think we should talk more about that, and also alliera, how do you say that? to become allies between different discriminated groups.
That's true. I can just echo that really fast, but most of the solutions are the same, regardless. Yeah. So for sure, work together.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, you can add, and then we move on to the second question.
Yeah. So as a student here at KTH, I just feel the urge to educate the teacher as well as students, because not everyone have the same knowledge that we do. And if they have this knowledge that we do, maybe they can proceed in another way. Yeah.
Or maybe they have even more knowledge that we are not aware of.
Yeah, that's true.
To exchange.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. And now it's a little bit of a different topic, but I think it's also interesting to cover that question from students that someone said today. So it is, what do you think about Swedish language requirements for many vacancies in Sweden, and how it could include internationals? So it's more about this bridge between students and them going to the work world. So I feel like, Greg, you're on it. Good.
I just have a quick input.
Yeah.
In particular, I just feel international students are put in a side here at KTH. They even have their own reception. They're not embedded as much as the Swedish people are that go to KTH. So I think that could be a solution to embed them or integrate them more.
Yeah. Which sounds easy to do, but it's good to make it voice this potential problem. Yeah. Okay.
So this is something we actively work with. So we do this with every single organization that we talk to. Basically, we ask them to reduce their language requirements. Or rephrase it. So, don't for sure never ever say native Swedish required, which we've seen. We have examples of carpentry jobs that require native Swedish, which we view as like a dog whistle for something else. But we ask every organization to reduce their Swedish language requirements to something and rephrase it to, can you communicate in Swedish? Can you, because there are a lot of people here who do have Swedish as a second language, don't speak it with a certain fluency, but that's okay. Can you communicate your thoughts? Yes, you can. Can you pick up Swedish at a fluency level that's required after a certain amount of months? Yes, you can. If you're working in Swedish every single day, guess what's going to happen to your language skills? So give everybody a chance and then take it from there.
Yeah. Nice. Sounds inspiring. For me personally, I'm not a native Swedish speaker whatsoever, but
I'll just quickly add too. So I'm from Toronto, and in Toronto, in Canada, 50% of the city is foreign born. So we're used to English being spoken at a very rudimentary level, but it's totally fine because if you have the skill set to do everything else, then you are valid to be hired. So that's how we see it there, and that's how I hope Sweden can one day see it here as well, because Swedish with an accent is still Swedish.
I think, because you mentioned also in the beginning that in Toronto there are a lot of people who are not from there originally, and maybe that's a norm, but in Sweden maybe it's less of a norm at this point, I would suggest.
The statistics don't back that up anymore. So a lot of people, there's the misinterpretation that Sweden is not that diverse when it comes to foreign-born people or children of foreign-born. But since we're in KTH and right now in the Stockholm region, the statistics prove that 48% of us, so 1 in every 2 in the Stockholm region is foreign-born, or the child is someone foreign-born. But we don't see that represented at most companies, if not any company.
Interesting. Any more additions to the language requirements questions? And totally,
No, but I think that we as companies, we need to be a little bit more open-minded when we think about who we want to recruit. That maybe not always Swedish is required. I mean, if you do a specific type of job, sometimes Swedish is absolutely required, but in many jobs not.
Yeah. But do you think it's part of the requirements because it's just easier to put it there and then?
No, I think it's that way because it has always been that way. You know, change takes time, and we need to rethink how we recruit and who we are looking for.
Yeah, Maria has an addition as well.
Employers who have had their first hired person with a disability, they are more likely to hire the next one.
Do you think it's linked to them not being so afraid of that anymore?
I guess so.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that we bring up some statistics here as well. Whoa, I don't have any statistics here to share with you. It's good to hear. Okay, we can move on to another question, which is more of a general one, but I think it's good to keep discussing that. Do you see the benefit of seeing the situation in different perspectives? So maybe what is the benefit of seeing one situation in different perspectives? And it comes back to why we even value diversity. Why do we need that in our work environments? Why do we not just get all Swedes work in one company? I would maybe rephrase it this way.
I think I got it. Yeah.
You can rephrase
it. So what's the value in having different perspectives in any sort of workplace or in a team or in education? From a workplace perspective, there's a lot of studies out there now that sort of prove, like fundamentally, quantified studies proving that the more diverse a team is, the more likely they are to outperform a team that's not as diverse. And it depends how you record diversity, but in terms of ethnic diversity, I know that I think it's 152%. So a Harvard study showed that if a team matches the ethnic diversity of their audience, they are 152% more likely to perform better and financially better. And then there's the Mckinsey study, which is super popular, and then that's the one that most people usually quote, and it's I think it's 35%, if I remember correctly. So the more diverse your team is, you're 35% more likely to financially outperform your peers who have the least diverse teams. So fundamentally, it's the way to go. I don't think there's any sort of argument against it. And I don't think you'll hear it from today's panel, but yeah.
Roh wants to add something as well, yeah?
Yeah, and I mean, it's also like if we connect back to university context and research and such, not having diversity can literally be dangerous. I mean, the classic examples are crash test dummies and heart medication, which were developed with only a sort of like white Western male as sort of the test group. But then in practice, the crash cushions and medications can be dangerous for people who have different kinds of bodies. So if we don't actually have diversity and representation of different bodies and experiences and needs, we're not gonna be able to actually provide the solutions or medications or innovations that we need in our societies that are diverse, that have lots of different needs. So it's also a question of quality in that sense. You can't have a qualitative education or research or product if it's only developed by a homogeneous group.
No, I just wanted to comment on what you said before, Greg. On diverse teams, it also boils down to leadership, an inclusive leadership, because if you don't have that and you don't have leaders that actually can work with diverse teams, then probably you will fail. So it's a combination of diverse teams and the leadership and what management really wants. And we have sort of one future, and the future needs to be together. So.
Yeah. Can you maybe also, Gabriella, talk a little bit about the Diversity Charter in Sweden and its chapter here? Because anyone I mention it to never recognized it as that, so I feel like maybe it would be nice if you...
Well, Diversity Charter is an organization for companies and organizations like KTH and Länsstyrelsen and other organizations, and the purpose is to unite leaders and learn from each other how to work with diversity, because there are no perfect models, and we need to talk to each other and exchange knowledge on how to do things, because we have a certain set of rules in Sweden. We cannot count, for instance, so we need to learn different methods how to create a diverse workplace and a good future.
What do you mean you cannot count?
But we cannot. We don't count foreign where you come from or religion. So it makes it a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, it's what I notice in newspapers. It's usually just a name and age, which is probably the things that people feel like they're allowed to say about someone else, which is interesting. But also maybe it's doing something for the society because they don't have to mention anything else. Do you think that somehow this is becoming a bigger problem? Because I feel like now these things are discussed more in Sweden, let's say. Is it because it's getting more crucial for us as a society to work on that? Or is it just because we have kind of solved some other questions and now we can move on to the diversity issue? Let's just make it sound like this.
I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about it, but
you're great at talking.
But basically, I mean, it's really sad to say, but basically, what happened to George Floyd last year, I think, spurred a lot of the movement that we see today, I believe, I am Swedish. I'm a Swedish citizen now, so I can probably say this, but I feel that Sweden's like a slow-moving machine, but once it starts its momentum, then everything starts moving a lot faster. So we tend to do things 10 years, 15 years after the fact, but then when we do it a little bit faster. So hopefully this is the start of something that's going to radically change the Swedish landscape. Let's wait and see. So far, I mean, we look a lot at statistics when we do our presentations and when we talk to different employers, and the statistics, like, it's not reflecting well on Sweden yet. And in fact, what it was like 10 years ago is very close to what it is still today. So let's see how we do moving forward. But yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for adding that. And we still have some more minutes. I'm just checking, but we're all perfectly fine. And yeah, so you mentioned one event that maybe sparkled the interest and the awareness about the topic. Do you think that there is something else or any other perspective on that? Why now?
I know we also have the Me Too movement here in Sweden, and I feel just generally like our generation has a new perspective on life and how we see each other as human beings, or so I don't even know how to answer this question, but I just feel like, as you said, Sweden is a country that views itself as a very good country in every perspective, but so Sweden, like the politicians, like they don't admit the the things that are quite problematic here in Sweden.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I agree with you. There's more like awareness in this generation. But yeah, it's going really slowly, and it doesn't make any sense if companies and school and everything doesn't take diversity into consideration, because like the society is diverse, and if you're in a company, you either provide a product or a service, so you want to reach out to as many individuals as possible, like for the profit and just to get the product or the service out there. So if you have a more diverse company, then it will reflect better on your product or your service. So, and a diverse workplace, I would say, is more fun than a homogeneous workplace. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
No, I agree. And from the employer's perspective, we need to attract the right talents, and then you have to work strategically with being a diverse company and work with inclusion.
I also realized I heard everyone saying a little bit more about the foundation or association they're linked to, but Maria, I didn't give you the chance to talk about the Swedish chapter of the human rights.
Yeah.
So you can talk about that.
We work with human rights and all discrimination. To say discrimination ground? No? Yeah. In English. And I work with rights for persons with disability, the Convention of Rights of Persons with Disability, CRPD, and with economic, social, and cultural rights also as well. And we are working now on a parallel report with a lot of organizations, NGOs. Sweden has turned in the official report on how we live up to those rights, and we are now putting together an alternative or parallel report on the same issue.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's what I work with, and we have, well, we were quite small, but we do a lot of stuff and try to work with all the human rights.
Yeah. And even now you mentioned the economical equality, and we did not even cover that here.
No.
So there's much more than I can think of. Yeah. Joe, you're taking the lead, or you just took the microphone? Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. How are we doing time? One more question. This is tough because we have 2 minutes. One more question. It could become like half an hour.
Speed round.
Huh?
Speed round.
Speed round. No, I'm trying not to, but yeah. If maybe two of you have a suggestion of that we could bring directly with Roh to the equality office, give it out. Huh?
I mean, I could address the thing that Greg mentioned earlier about more knowledge about discrimination and people's experiences at KTH, and I can just say that that's something that we're aware of and that we're working on. We have Equality Office has suggested to the management that we get a new task for next year to sort of get more qualitative data about experiences of discrimination at KTH, because we have statistics, but that can often is only just a number, but it doesn't necessarily say that, okay, but we see, for instance, among international PhD students that they have more experiences of discrimination based on ethnicity than on national PhD students, but we don't know how is that discrimination expressed, for instance. So that's something that we want to work more with, getting that kind of knowledge. But as you also mentioned about what kind of data we can collect, and it's difficult because in the EU we can't collect data on transgender identity or expression or on ethnicity or on disability because those are considered to be sensitive data. So we can't necessarily get the data we need very easily to work proactively. So we have to find these solutions of how can we get that data in other ways, but by still following the law, which we obviously have to do. But there are lots of exciting things going on at KTH, but I also really want to encourage students to be proactive as well. As you said, you can do a lot if you just know that you can do a lot, and make demands. Ask for more content connected to diversity and equity from your lecturers, and talk to this administration at your school about how can you work with the environment and so on. Lots of things that you can do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and now I took up all the time and
Yeah.
you didn't have time to give me
I
demands.
put you on the spot, and yeah, you defended yourself without any, or maybe with some pressure, and I didn't want to make it put pressure. But yeah, thank you so much for this discussion, and I'm glad we could have this 45 minutes to talk about that, and maybe we can carry on after, but not here.
Yes, I'm so sorry to cut in, but thank you everyone for this discussion. I am just going to hand over the microphone to our live presentation moderators, because it's starting to get 4 o'clock. The first day of the fair is almost over.
Woohoo! Some sound effects.